Welcome to episode 6 of the Puzhitsky podcast. Today we have Brad Gosse with us today. Hello, Brad.
How's it going?
Great. Thanks for being here. But I guess I'm technically at your place because this is his amazing studio. We got the fancy mics, and I wish you can see everything that's going around here. As a new creator myself, I'm kind of salivating. This is unreal. You got everything going on here. The perfect studio for content creation.
Yeah, I like my little space down here.
Yeah. So give yourself an introduction for anybody that might not know who you are. What do you do? What are you about?
I'm Brad Gosse, the creepy old guy on the internet that writes children's books.
Yep. Yeah, nice. The children's, but actually, I think they're hilarious, and it's like a cool thing that you do because, like, so I just kind of I'm a full-time comedian now, and I'm thinking of ways.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. I got my master's degree and went right into comedy. But
master's degree in what?
Chemistry.
Oh,
yeah.
Why is there a fruit fly in here?
Synthetic organic chemistry.
And then comedy.
Yeah. And
why?
Then comedy. I don't know. I guess chemistry fucked me up enough that I decided to take it out on the stage. But
is that why we're here in a meth lab?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We're in the meth lab. That's true, right? This is not a green screen. This is a real meth lab. We reached out to the Netflix folks and they gave us the Breaking Bad set to film in today, so it's great. I hope this is actually working. I think I'm close enough.
Oh yeah, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
All right. Yeah, no, it's definitely so. Like, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is that you have what? You have the new card game, Identity War. You can like grab that, show it to the camera. That's a pretty cool thing. It's hilarious. It's like it's kind of like a Cards Against Humanity thing, but with identity.
It's Cards Against
wokeness,
political uproar.
yeah. Cards for free speech. Let's call it.
That's right. Yeah, shout out to Jay Rainville, my partner on
yes,
that one.
Jay Rainville, yeah. You guys did a great job with that game. It's hilarious. I was at the Tonight Bar the other week, and I was like looking through the cards and having a nice laugh.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It was cool to create it. It was the first time I did a game of any kind, but the minute Jay said to me, I have a card game idea, and I think you'd be perfect to partner with me on it. I didn't even know what it was. I just said yes. Yeah. Because I've been dying to create a card game.
No, yeah, that's perfect. And the way that you guys did it, I was asking you too, because I was like looking into like some merch with all your books and that too. You have like an illustrator, I guess, that draws this stuff out.
Yeah, I have a full-time guy who does my cartoons.
Yeah, that's cool. Because these days, like I was saying, I'm just trying to learn the ropes right now. Like there's so much that goes into. They say now, it's funny. I used to have like an excuse when I'd tell dick jokes in the basement. People would be like, "Oh, that was a good set. Like, what do you actually do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm a master's student." They're like, "Cool." Now I'm like, "No, this is what I do. I'm a comedian." Yeah. But like,
you're one of the few in Toronto that's full time, right? Most comics that you meet in the GTA have a day job.
Yes, yeah. However, when you say comic, it's funny. Like, say comedian in 2023, like, oh, you just like, what do you sit on the toilet and like write jokes? No, you're a
sometimes.
Actually, very often.
Yeah.
However. Yeah. You're also so you write your jokes, you perform them. You're a social media analyst. You do video editing. You do Photoshop. You do TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. You do all of that. You're
marketing, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's more that meets the eye to it. I think you're the perfect person to attest to that because, like, I was thinking of ways to monetize, right? So you have your books, you have the card game, you have your merch, you have all these things. So that's like you have it basically down. And have you always been...
It appears that way.
Yes, but have you always been like like a business oriented guy, or does it just, do you just learn as you go?
Yeah, I was an entrepreneur in my 20s and my whole life basically. I'm unemployable. Yeah. So you have a master's degree, I have a grade 10 education.
Nice. Yeah.
So for me, having a job was never really an option because I like money.
Yeah.
And as a high school dropout, it's really hard to find good paying, well-paying work that is easy.
Yeah.
And lets me, sleep whenever I want. So I started my first business at age 23. Actually, I started my first business when I was 19, but I started my first full-time company was when I was 24, and I've never had a job since then. And then I sold my business a few years ago and decided to go full-time comedy.
Nice. What started you down the entrepreneurial path?
I was in the adult entertainment business.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard down the grapevine, maybe Jay's podcast. Do you want
probably.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, elaborate on that a little bit? You weren't, there's a lot of, again, like people think, oh, porn star, but you were actually finding other ways to make money through
I was a
this.
webmaster. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just did it online and sold subscriptions to my websites, and
yeah.
I was really good at search engine optimization and traffic and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So, and this is one of my stupid claims to fame. But do you remember LimeWire? Do you
Yes,
know
I
what that
do.
is?
Yeah.
So I was the biggest LimeWire spammer in the world.
Oh shit. Okay.
My buddy and I had a company called P2P Ads, and we figured out a way to piggyback pop-up ads inside QuickTime videos.
Okay.
And so, if you downloaded a malicious file from LimeWire at any point and it messed with your computer, I'm truly sorry. But you got me paid, so thank you. So yeah, that was one of my claims to fame at the time. It was, so I that was back when sort of the internet was the wild, wild west, and you could just
Yeah.
kind of get away with whatever you wanted. And so I was really focused on sort of how powerful the internet was in terms of exposure, free exposure, and I guess I still am.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because like you say back then you were, search engine optimization, and you were kind of, it's still nowadays, like I said, as a comedian, you're a social media analyst. So I feel like
Yeah,
all of that prepared you very well for where you are right
yeah,
now.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned a lot to get me here, and then I think I realized I wanted to be a comic ever since I was a kid. I
Yeah.
always wanted to be a comedian, but the road was so hard. In the
Mm,
90s, comedy kind of died in the 90s. Stand-up comedy died a little bit in the 90s, and really didn't really have a comeback until the last sort of 10, 15 years when Netflix started airing specials again. And so I really, you know, I saw that there was an opportunity to become a comic and do it here in my basement,
mm-hmm.
because um I'm not good at asking producers for spots.
Mm,
I'm not good at open mic because I don't like people.
yeah.
And when I say I don't like people, I don't hate people. I hate being in large groups of people and
Mm-hmm.
being in the midst of that group and trying to network and make friends in that. Like, it's just not, like, I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
um I spend most of my time alone, and I like it that way. So for me, when comedy and the internet kind of hit this point where I was like, okay, I could do this now with all my skill set
Yeah.
and what I know. That's when I decided it was time. And so, that's kind of what made me decide to do it, was when I realized I could do this online,
Yeah.
and maybe even never on a stage.
Yeah.
But I like the stage. I actually love the stage. I just don't like all the things you have to do to get on the stage. All the ass kissing you have to do,
Yeah.
all the people you need to impress or convince or whatever.
I was just saying yesterday to my girlfriend, like, yes, I'm a full-time comedian now, but if I had to make my money doing the road and on stage, I would imagine that in the 90s,
Forget it.
the way
Forget it. Yeah.
Bill Burr did it. He was
Yeah.
like broke into the one of the, like, you bring up, you know, stand-up comedy, you think Bill Burr, Louis CK, whatever, Dave Chappelle, they had to just tour and be broke as hell
Yeah.
in the negatives until they were like 30 years old. Well, Chappelle found actually success at an earlier age, but like I know for a fact Bill Burr was broke until he was like 45.
Yeah, and I can't do broke.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
do
yeah,
I don't
as
do
you've said.
I don't do broke. I say it all the time, but I am here for the money.
Yeah,
A lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm an artist," or I'm a pure, blah
yeah,
blah blah. I don't
yeah,
care about money. You're full of shit.
yeah,
And the idea that you have to eat shit on the road for so many years and be
yeah.
broke and stay in, like, I've stayed in comedy condos. And it's like
The
that
hell is
life.
that? What's a comedy condo?
So when you go on the road, a lot of the time the comedy clubs they have a condo. So like if
Mm,
you go to like Yucks in Alberta, or they have a dedicated apartment for
Yeah.
comics to stay in. And a lot of the time, if you're not the headliner, you're sleeping on the couch in that
Jesus. Yeah.
condo. Like I just went on the road this year with another comic, Ben Bankus, and I was middling for him. He was the headliner, and I'm a Nancy boy, right? Like
Yeah.
I like I and I'm going to say this is going to sound so like braggadocious, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I fly business class.
Mm.
Ben and Armin stayed in this comedy condo that was just a rundown wreck, and I was in a nice hotel. Like
Yeah.
I went out of pocket. I don't care because
Yeah.
I'm making money with my books, and I was just like, I'm going to stay in. I'm not. I need high thread count sheets. I need a mint on my fucking pillow.
Yeah.
I am perpetually comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's the beautiful thing about this is like there's so many ways to do it, right? Like
Yeah.
I hear you and I understand you, but I'm completely different. And here we are talking and like,
Yeah.
finding things in common and but
But
like
you're
yeah,
also
like,
young. Like, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Right. So I'm turning 50 this year.
Yeah.
So I started my first business at your age. You're
Yeah.
like half my age.
Yeah.
At 24, I definitely would have been a little bit more open to sleeping on a floor,
Yeah.
like eating a little bit of shit at that age.
Yeah.
But I've created layers of comfort over my lifetime that would not allow me to do that unless I was just broke and unable to stay in a nice place.
That makes a lot of sense. And also what you were saying about the ass kissing in comedy, I hate that so much too. Like like getting spots and booking spots. And it's so funny because people refuse, and usually older comics, right, refuse to accept. And that's what's actually I find so amazing with your situation is because comics that are older and have been doing it for a while, not that you've been doing it for a while, but the fact that you're kind of like a vet, so to speak, at least compared to me, and you're just completely embracing the internet comedy age and taking fully taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
I remember my first show I did at the Royal, RIP, and I was filming a reel just to promote the show on my Instagram, and some old dude outside was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm filming a show." And he's like, what are you, like, Instagram star or whatever? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how much money do you make? I'm like, I don't know. Here, use my fucking HelloFresh code. I'll make $60 more. He's like, have you ever thought of being original? I'm like, bro, he literally had a pizza stain on his wife beater. He's been doing this for how long?
Right.
So,
and a day job.
Yeah, and probably a day job. So like people, and even guys like, understandably almost, Dave Chappelle, like I was just watching a video about him kind of when he was on Joe Rogan, he was kind of not bashing, but he was Joe Rogan brought up Andrew Schultz, like the stuff the kind of monologues he did, and Chappelle's like, that's not my thing, that's not comedy, that's not stand-up comedy. And sure, it's not, but that's how Andrew Schultz just did 2 sold-out nights at the Scotiabank Arena, right?
He's killing it.
And
he's hilarious.
Yeah, he is funny.
Yeah.
So
he's one of my favorite comics.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And it's not.
And I saw Dave Chappelle this year actually at Scotiabank. So
exactly, right? So they both. So there we go. Both of them did Scotiabank. Both of them sold out, and both of them did it in very different ways. So there's not one way or one style to do it.
Of course not. Yeah.
People, like, comedy is very much like music or food. It's completely subjective, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't understand why people have such strong opinions about the way that it's done, because there is no way to do it. You just gotta find your thing.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And that's like the best advice. The first open mic I did, I remember some guy came up to me and he's like, how many times have you done this? I'm like, oh, that was my first time. And he gave me some advice, which is rare that you actually like listen to it, because now I don't know,
it's all unsolicited advice.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, get out of here. But he said you just got to find a way to be yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely,
that's what it is. Yeah. So what's you said you don't love the open mics, right? Like what's your thought? What's your process of like making material, like stage material specifically? Because you got the content down. That's kind of like you just throw stuff at the wall and you see what sticks. But with the stage, kind of your bits that you do, stand-up comedy, what's your process with that?
Social media is my open mic.
Nice.
So okay. I test every joke out on social because the algorithm will tell me if it's funny or not.
Okay.
And the problem is an open mic won't tell you that, because you're sitting in a room full of other comics who are working on their joke notes because they're up next.
Yeah.
They're not looking at you. They're not listening to you. And sometimes if you're funny, they're trying not to laugh because they don't want to give it up, or they're just too hard. You know, some comics are just too hard to make laugh.
Yeah.
So something that might work in a normal room won't work in an open mic. So I test out 100% of my jokes on social media, and that's always been my process, is to just, you know, do a short, put it up on, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if it goes viral in one of those three platforms, I know that that joke is worth telling on stage.
Okay.
And a lot of my stage material is me reading my books.
Yeah.
So I bring my books to the stage. I do some jokes without the books. Then I usually pull out a book or two.
Mm.
And those always kill. Like,
Yeah.
they always kill on stage. So that's kind of been my process the whole time, is to just use the algorithm to test. Because
Yeah.
the great thing is I think a lot of comics are afraid to not be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally happy if someone comments cringe. I'm totally happy
Yeah.
because if it's not funny, it doesn't go viral. So only a handful of people are going to see me not be funny.
Yeah.
And, so if I have a diehard fan and they see something that isn't funny, they'll know that I'm just testing stuff out, and they don't care. They're not going to unfollow me because I told a
Yeah.
bad joke, or, and if they, and sometimes they do. Like, it happens where, like, I tell some pretty off-color jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and some colored jokes. And so for me, it's like, I sometimes people will say, I was with you until that
Yeah.
last joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I say,
Cool. Yeah.
bye, loser.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, you're never here for the full journey. And everybody, or not everybody, but there's some people, it's like, you can joke about anything you want except for this.
Yeah.
And it's always something different.
Yeah.
Like, I right now I have a video going viral on TikTok, and Matt, when I tell you, I didn't think this book, like, sometimes I write books and I'm like, this one's just funny. It's not going to offend anybody.
Yeah.
So I wrote this book called Mom's Crystals Won't Save Your Pop Pop.
Okay.
Right. And it's just all about crystal bitches and how,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like, it's taken it to an extreme where this woman thinks, rose quartz is going to cure her dad's cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have ignited
Yeah.
this anger in a certain group of people. They're like, this is misogyny.
Yeah.
This is, because
Yeah.
only women use crystals. So, and it's like, well, that's misogyny. Like, that's
No. Yeah.
so, and they're like, so you're attacking women, and you're so stupid because, crystals power everything. And I'm like, no, they don't. Like,
Yeah.
what do you power? What power are we getting from these things? And, oh, there's a crystal in your microphone. And okay, calm down. They vibrate at a certain frequency. Sometimes people use them in electronics, but they're not powering anything. But for some reason, like, sometimes you think you're not going to offend anybody, and then you offend people.
Yeah.
And then other times I'm like, okay, this book's going to piss up a whole bunch of people off, and nobody gets offended.
Yeah.
So, you're all like, I'm not afraid to offend. And I actually like when I trigger people, because the one thing I've learned with social is the people who love my stuff
Mm-hmm.
will comment, LOL, that's funny, just bought one of your books, and I'll respond with thank you, and that's the end of the exchange. But when someone's angry, I can make them come back, and you earn a couple cents a view, or a fraction of a cent a view. I can get them to come back 100 times and argue with me.
Absolutely.
And I'm there for it. And a lot of people get, like, for me, one of my core principles with online is every negative comment is a heckler.
Uh-huh.
And so I treat them as such, and I respond to them, and they're always surprised when I do. And then they're like, wow, you must really be desperate because you're responding to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're just content. You're a supporting actor in my movie.
Yeah.
Like, and so when you make people angry, you actually go more viral,
Mm-hmm.
because the people who hate you will tell everybody.
Yeah.
The people who love you will tell their best friends.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, because like my most successful series is this, like, Americans in Europe.
Yeah, I've
Americans
seen it.
whatever.
It's awesome.
And it's like the comments. People write literal novels in the comments.
Oh yeah,
and send me so many like death threats. Like, fucking, it's hilarious. And the thing is, while they're writing that novel in the comments, your video is looping.
Exactly.
And they're coming back, and other people are responding to their comments.
Yeah.
So and that's the way. That's the kind of. It's weird that social's feeding that kind of. Like, that's what goes goes viral now, right? The controversy, more so than anything else. Which, you can draw positives and negatives from that, but again, that's the name of the game. That's what it is. So why not do it, right? And I guess I was gonna ask you. So how do you? Obviously, the nature of your content, you deal with a lot of hate, right?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that? And you just described it, right? Like it obviously doesn't get to you.
No, I have a very thick skin. Um, I'm just gonna make sure we're still rolling this one up.
Yeah, cool.
Um, we're back.
We're back.
I have a very thick skin, and I would say 99.9% of the time nobody gets to me.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, it's funny. Like, um, I I don't know. I learned a long time ago, even before I was in comedy. I my very first book I wrote in 2012. It was a business book when I was an entrepreneur, but the business book was done in my style, which had a cartoon of me smoking a joint on the front. It was called The Chronic Marketer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about being an entrepreneur who likes to get high.
Okay.
And this was before weed was legal.
Mm.
Before and all,
Yeah.
and I learned when I put that book out that having an equal number of lovers and haters is the best possible outcome. That book became a bestseller.
Yeah.
It kind of introduced me to the world of self-publishing,
Yeah.
and I realized then that igniting people and creating a polarization was good. As
Yeah.
much as that's kind of brought us to where our world is now, which
Yeah.
is everybody's butthurt over everything. But leaning into that has been very profitable for me. So I just do it.
It's a life lesson, man. Like you're not never gonna please anyone, like everyone.
Yeah,
in
and the
life,
more vanilla
right?
you
Like,
become, right? If you try to please everyone,
and that's the problem. Which what you were saying with this whole PC culture is that the whole idea is not offending anyone. And how do you go about life when the number one thing on your mind is like, okay, like check mark, these people are not these. You just have to do your thing.
yeah,
You make a mistake, learn from it,
yeah,
and move on. You can't cancel people as soon as they make a mistake. That's like there's the whole argument about the death sentence or whatever. That's literally what it is. It's like a professional death sentence. You can't.
But the thing is that you can't be canceled unless you work for somebody.
That's true. There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're an
Yeah.
independent comic like you or myself, where you don't have a boss,
Yeah.
you don't. It's not like you're on Comedy Central or some you've got some deal with some streaming company, and they're waiting for the right number of complaints to come in to just pull the rug out from under you. Then you're uncancelable.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be deplatformed if you're really crazy, which I'm really crazy and I haven't been deplatformed. So, you got to be even crazier than me to be, to be canceled online. And even then, you could just start a new account the next day and your fans will find you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to cancel someone unless they have a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like with the whole online thing, there's a Louis C.K. bit where he says he's the worst person ever when he's driving a car.
Yeah.
He's just like a complete jackass, right?
Yeah.
When you put some glass and metal between him and whoever, he's like somebody swerving out of the lane. He's like, you should die. And then if somebody's in an elevator with you and bumps your shoulder, you'll be like, oh, it's all good, right?
Yeah.
That online is taken a step further. I feel like with this anonymity, people like the shit. People, I posted this on my story the other day because it was so funny. Somebody wrote me a message, like the time they take out of their day to like write this message, and if I can even find it. But like, what do you think about that? The fact that like this anonymity that you have online makes you like the half of the, or not even half, I would say 99.9999999% of the things people say to you online, the negative things,
right?
If they were face to face with you, how would they treat that interaction?
Well, very differently.
Yeah.
Especially with me, I'm 6'5" and 270 pounds. So people don't normally normally nobody ever says anything negative to me in person, but online it's a different world. And I think here's the thing, right? We're talking about platforms like TikTok and Instagram where people can be anonymous. If you were on LinkedIn and we knew where you worked,
yeah,
you can't be that big of a jackass, right? If I know who your boss is, you're not going to say, and you're not going to say something. You're not going to say the kinds of things that you would say if we can carbon copy that back to your boss.
Yeah.
So I find that the anonymity definitely makes people stronger, but it also creates a fun discourse that makes our jobs more fun and makes our jobs better.
Yeah. So here's the message, right? I posted a reel about Australians, and it's like, okay, here's my impression of Australian Santa Claus, and I went horror, 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 right? Because they have
Right.
that weird accent. And then this is what he writes. He's like, you are the biggest fucking pussy, Matt. You are an embarrassment to all men. Why don't you get a real job instead of being a dipshit peasant comedian? Enter loser." And I just thought it was funny and replied, "Mom?" question mark.
Right. Yeah. I do that sometimes. I'm like, Dad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dad, Mom.
Yeah. My favorite is when they use comedian in quotes.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
call yourself a comedian,
Comedian,
you know?
yeah.
And I think it's because, look, I mean, most people who leave those kinds of comments and send you those kinds of messages are sad.
Yeah.
And they need to attack you because you're doing something they only wish they could do. And you're living a life that you're living out loud in a way that they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so they attack because it's the only thing they have.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to make their own content. They can't be out in front because they have a job or because they have a wife that doesn't, you know, or whatever reason. Everybody has a reason why they're not making content, right?
Yeah,
Or they just don't want to make content, but they
Yeah.
need to attack you for doing it. And it's funny how, like, something as simple as making fun of an accent can drive someone to be so angry.
Yeah.
Like, how did you take that personally? How did you
Yeah.
get so mad over such a simple, like, you know, to be not to take
I mean,
you down,
to be
but
fair,
it's like
he's
it's a simple
Australian,
joke, right?
so-
But it's a simple joke,
Yeah,
right?
very.
When you make fun of an accent, it's funny, but
Yeah.
it's kind of simple in terms of joke terms. Like, you didn't go after this guy personally,
Yeah.
but he took it personally, or
Yeah,
just decided to get angry about it, and then it's like, it's, I don't know, I love, like, this is rare, but I love triggering people. Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
like, I love, like, and I actually have it in my bio. I'm like, I'm happy if you're laughing,
Mhm.
but I'm even happier if you're triggered.
Yeah.
And so, like, I joke about it, but it does feed my ego. I'm like, your emotional turmoil feeds my ego. If I've upset you, if I've stirred the pot that much with a joke, to the point where you're like, you know, attacking me, like, my favorite is when they're like, receding hairline, you know, you're
Mhm.
such an old man and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, of course I'm old. Of course, like,
Yeah.
I have a mirror. Like, I know, you know, but you're attacking my hair. And obviously I'm attacking my hair.
Mhm.
Right. So, like, you know, we're on the same page here, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
you're not getting to me with these, like, personal appearance attacks, but it's like, that's what they go for, because they're in the dirt, and they have to, like, you know, shoot from the dirt, and
Yeah.
it's just like, that's all they got. That's all you
Yeah.
got.
Absolutely. And I think, like, you know, the worst thing is here. What's the opposite of love?
Hate.
No, it's indifference. Because love is a strong emotion that you feel. Hate is also a strong emotion that involves passion, right?
Right.
I wouldn't say they're technically,
I feel like indifference is in the middle.
well, they're
between the two.
technically opposites, but
Right.
they build on the same kind of human passion, right? We're
Right.
not robots, we're humans, and
Sure.
they kind of come from the same place.
Right.
I think the opposite of love and hate is indifference.
Yeah.
And that's why where that, you know, a lot of people say, like, you know, you haven't made it until you have haters. But it's true, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, if everybody's indifferent towards you, what are you gonna, like? That's the bottom, right?
Yeah, that's how you become a
people love
politician.
you, people hate you, right?
Yeah.
But they still have feelings towards you. You're not indifferent.
Yeah. You're right.
That's where I'm coming from.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. I'd rather you hate me than not give a fuck.
exactly, right? And also, yeah, I find it so entertaining when people leave messages like that. Because imagine, like, watching the video, having the thought in your head, going like, okay, yeah, let's write out this message, reading it through, making sure, you know, like, punctuation's good, grammar's correct, and then hitting send and going like, all right, fucking got him, you know, like,
Yeah.
let's go. And then going, getting a coffee, going about your day. Like, it's just so that mentality. Like, I never, even, like, my biggest, like, idols in comedy, like, I would never on social media, or, like, I never, like, send them DMs, or I like their stuff,
Right.
but I never commented, because it never, like, I'm like, what is this? I'm sending, like, a comment into the abyss. Why does it's like fucking my uncle tweeting to, like, 0 people, right?
Right.
Like, it's, what's the point? So you know, I appreciate them. I watch their stuff. That's how I support them. Or if I hate them, I just don't watch their stuff, right?
I comment on a lot of other comics stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you're a comic as well, and it's
Yeah.
good to show support. I do the same thing, but that's why I do it personally. I don't know.
I do it because I like them.
Yeah.
And because, you know, and it's usually, it's usually, like, you know, either something positive or some type of topper or tag to the joke that they made, you know, like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll kind of, you know, add something to it just for fun. And it's been good for me because I get, some of them follow me back, and so it's kind of like it's a good way to sort of, make friends without,
Yeah, yeah,
without
yeah.
like, showing up backstage and being all stalker and weird.
There
And
we go. That's your open mic,
yeah,
right? That's
exactly,
your
right. So I
networking.
like that.
Yeah, that's actually I actually remember like my first interaction. I've seen your videos because uh your videos of you reading your books went viral before, so I've seen them. And then when I was just kind of starting to put content out and it was starting to get some traction, I saw that I saw one of your videos.
Yeah,
I went onto your profile to follow you,
yeah,
and you had already followed me.
right,
And I'm like, oh, this guy's from Toronto, that's really cool, like I'll reach out to him eventually. And
right,
I did, and we
yeah,
ended up collaborating and stuff. So that's, yeah, that's true. That is the way this kind of stuff works.
yeah,
So that does make sense. Maybe I should start interacting a little bit more, because
yeah.
I'm
Why
kind
not?
of like indifferent. But and being in the content creation space, I am right interacting a little bit more
Yeah,
like with other people. But yeah, that's my, because I don't know, there's this thing in person. I'm better at, I'm the opposite of you in that way. I'm good at kind of like being in person and socializing and kind of, you know that's probably why I love comedy so much, because I'm an absolute fucking raging narcissist, right? Like
right.
my, like when I'm on stage and I'm
Same.
making people laugh and they
Yeah.
love me, I'm like, yes, this is where you
Would
know
you consider yourself an extrovert?
yeah, I
Okay.
would say so. Yeah. I
So
don't
you
think
get your energy from being out in people as opposed to being alone at home.
that's tough. I never really sat down to think about, I'm definitely not an introvert. I'm kind of an, I don't like
Like some
part
people, like when I say introvert, right? Some people take that negatively,
no.
but it's like it's just about where you get your energy. So the sort of definition is, that the extrovert needs to go out and be with people to feel recharged,
Okay.
whereas the introvert goes home to recharge.
I would definitely recharge at home, but like, and I wouldn't want to, like, I've never been to one of those fucking raves or whatever, like the clubs and stuff,
Right.
right? I can't do that, but I'm fine being out at like a comedy club amongst people.
Right.
But recharge wise, definitely at home alone, just watching a movie, maybe like,
So
you
you're
know,
probably an introvert, or you can be an introvert and still be good at extroverting,
okay,
which if you see me out in public,
yeah,
I'm pretty good at being an extrovert,
mm-hmm,
but I'm faking it.
okay,
I'm not even
yeah.
faking it. I'm just I'm trying
Yeah,
as a
guys, this is sponsored by BetterHelp. Get yourself a
yeah,
therapist.
exactly.
No, actually, I'm gonna blurt that out until they pay me.
As you should. As you
Business
should.
sense. No, but yeah, so that's interesting. I never actually thought about that. Maybe, yeah, like I could. The only time I enjoy being around people is when I'm with my friends or family. I like those kind of gatherings.
Right.
But then as soon as my favorite part about going out in college, for example, would be like the pre, as they call it, when you're kind of just drinking with your friends, and then you go to the club, and I'm like,
Right.
all right, then I start buying shots for girls and wasting money and going home alone anyways. So that's never the fun part.
I'm just gonna check one more time. I'm gonna
Yeah.
flip the screen out. I'm constantly paranoid this thing shuts off. It doesn't, but I'm paranoid that it does. So just give me one sec. I'm gonna flip this out. Okay,
Perfect.
we good.
Nice. All right. Actually, I was gonna ask you about that. So like you're the equipment pro. Like I'm looking around here, your sick ass studio. You got the sound isolation, you got a camera setup, podcast setup, awesome background monitor to see what we're looking at, fucking dual screen, everything. So that's like as I go and I'm buying more equipment, and it's like I'm building from zero. So I'm like, compared to this, I'm like fucking, and this is like obviously an investment too. It's not just like, if I had the funds, I would have all of this stuff too. But like, yeah, like how do you, like when you're building from, do you usually just, when you started, right, you didn't have any of this stuff for content creation, do you just go little by little? Okay, you build it up slowly, or did you just go all at once, kind of have an idea in your mind? And
I built it out slowly.
yeah,
I started with my iPhone,
yeah,
just
yeah,
me and
yeah,
my phone, and then I slowly started, buying, microphone, and I started with a cheap mic, and then and it's one of those things where it's like people kind of comment on your stuff, and it's like audio people are the worst, right? Like
mm-hmm.
I had a cheap mic, and man, did the audio people come at me. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't,
yeah,
the funny thing is, I don't know if I'm tone deaf, but I can't tell,
can't tell
like
you.
these are expensive mics. I can't
Yeah,
tell the difference between these and my, like these are like $600 mics. I can't tell the difference between this and the $40 mic that I used before this.
yeah,
And whereas like, Jay Rainville, he's a good friend of mine, as you know as well. He was like, you need to upgrade your mic. And I'm like, okay, I can't tell the difference. Tell me what
Yeah.
he told me to get these mics,
Yeah.
and but it wasn't until I started making a lot of money that I started investing a lot in like I started cheap, and I built slowly over time. I used a cheap, my first, 1,000 videos were done on a cheap webcam, my iPhone, and a cheap mic here in my basement, but I've always had like, because I had my own business, I always had like a good Mac, and I always had at least some good equipment,
Yeah.
to work with. And but yeah, over time, as money came in, I bought better equipment.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. All my videos are just on my iPhone. And actually these days the iPhones, they're like the video quality, especially the
Oh yeah, it's
cameras
great.
are unreal.
It's
And like
great.
there's all these comparisons literally compared to like top of the line DSLR. Like you can barely tell the difference. If you're pixel picking, you zoom in, like obviously the DSLR performs better, but
Right. Yeah.
for content, like you said, like the best stuff for us right now is stuff that you just have an idea, you feel like the stuff you put the least effort in almost.
Yeah.
For that kind of
Absolutely.
stuff,
Yeah.
iPhone is all you need. So if anybody is out there, when before I started making content, I also had that idea like, okay, maybe I'll get this, and then no, you have an iPhone in your pocket, that's all you need. If you're making excuses like that, that's not an excuse, just do it.
Yeah, you see a lot of that with YouTubers where they're like, I need to buy all the best
Yeah.
equipment before I make the first video. And then they're disappointed in their quality, or they're disappointed in their in like they put more time into the gear than they put into the actual content. And that's the mistake you make, right? It's like, just pull out your phone, make the content, you know, at the end of the day, if the video's funny, it's going to go viral, whether you
Yeah.
shot it on an old Android or the iPhone 15, or, like we're using a 4K mirrorless camera that's, you can definitely tell the difference between this
Yeah.
camera and an iPhone, but again, you have to really, you got to be looking for it. And the average user is more concerned about what we're doing
Hmm.
than the resolution of the camera or the
And
lights or anything else.
that's the beautiful thing about this day and age in comedy, and honestly in any industry, because like we were saying back then, in order to make it, Bill Burr had to sleep on a couch for like basically 50 years of his life.
Yeah.
And nowadays you just have to be funny.
Yep.
Be funny, toss an iPhone there, and if you're funny, people will come. Like I stop myself from using the word algorithm, and it's just I say like the viewers, or like your audience, because it's not the algorithm. It's not. A lot of comics actually now, like especially at mics, they come up to me, and because they see I'm doing well on social media, they're like, oh, I want to do this skit, like what do you think about this? The fact that you're asking me, why do it, I'm not your target audience. Just do it, just post
Yeah.
it. You have an idea, fucking film it, post it. Doesn't work, do it again, do it again, do it again.
I see a lot of comics where, they'll come up to me because I find, like you, when you have when you have a good social presence, you do get a lot of comics that'll come to you and ask for help or advice or what should I do. And then I'll look, I'll say, oh, let me see what's your Instagram, and I'll pull it up, and they've got 4 videos
Yeah,
on there.
yeah.
And then I'll say, how do you only have 4 videos? Like, I should be able to infinitely scroll on here. And then they're like, well, I'm really only going to put my best stuff up on social. I'm like, you're here at an open mic testing out jokes for a
Yeah.
bunch of douchebag comics that aren't even laughing at you.
Yeah.
And then you're deciding that that's not funny enough to put on social, and you want to put your best work up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's not going to get you to where you want to go. You need to just have like, content diarrhea and
Yeah.
just put it all up.
Absolutely.
And like,
yeah.
I've literally uploaded hundreds of videos in a single day. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I like to use the word algorithm because I'm a coder, and so I have that mindset.
Yeah.
But I understand that the algorithm is literally viewers,
Yeah.
and the algorithm only works when people watch the whole video, comment on the video, so those metrics matter, and those metrics come from making content. They don't come from tricking the algorithm or having some, a lot of people are like, oh, if I use this sound, it's going to make me. No, that's not how this works. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be making stuff that's original and funny. That's what's going to make you go viral.
Yeah, and you were talking about the algorithms are different from Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. God knows if I don't know what it is. The way that I got into, so I started on TikTok, and then I had a bunch of videos go viral, and I reposted them on Instagram, and they also went viral. And then I'm reposting them on YouTube, and I was literally getting like 20 views per video for the longest time, just until up a couple months ago, and then I started reaching the thousands. I only just recently had a video do like 20K views on YouTube, which is my first time ever, right? I have videos that have on TikTok fucking 20 million, and
Right.
on YouTube I'm barely, and I'm still like I said, every subscriber I get on YouTube now, I'm like, yes, let's go. And I know that eventually it's going to happen. Like you said, right? You told me before the podcast. So just like what was your YouTube journey like? Explain it.
Yeah, it was a slow climb, and you know, I started out with a very small number of subscribers, and I remember like actively pushing people. You know, I'd be live on TikTok, and there'd be a huge audience, and I'd be like, go to YouTube, you know, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
follow me there, and then I, you know, I'd like you, I was, you know, I'd count my subscribers, and then one day, you know, I just decided to puke out as much content as I could, and I cut up a whole bunch of vertical shorts, and I uploaded them to YouTube, and it was like hundreds of videos. And I went from 4,000 subscribers. I went from like 1,000 to 10,000 pretty quickly, and then I went from 10,000 to 300,000 really
Jeez.
quickly. Like it was like 30 days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
From 10K to almost 300K was like 30 days.
That's
So
crazy.
I went from,
Just
you
from
know,
those like 200 you posted in one day, or
it
like,
was like, you know, I did 200, and then I saw a big jump, and then I was like, okay. And then I, you know, every, like I do a lot of, like I go on Omegle, and
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
do crowd.
yeah.
I
Crowd
call it
work.
crowd work at home. And I go on Omegle, and so I was filming all these reactions, you know, to my content on
Yeah.
Omegle. And so when I saw those numbers kind of boosting, I just went on every single night. Like it was like every night I
Yeah.
was on Omegle, making new reaction videos, doing crowd work, filming it, putting up the best clips, you know, and putting up the full length videos. And it made a big difference. Like it was
Hmm.
just like, okay, you know, now like I kind of rode that wave up.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I got the email. They're like, hey, we're sending you a plaque. And I was like, yes, like, you know,
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
and I gotta say, like, you know, I've been doing this for 4 years, and not many things like make me emotional, right?
Yeah.
I'm a pretty like dry person in reality. um but when I got that plaque,
Yeah.
I remember opening it up, and I remember looking at it, and I was sitting down here in my basement by myself, and I almost cried. Like
Yeah.
I
That's
remember,
pretty cool.
because it was one of those things where you watch other YouTube videos and you see the plaque in your background, you're like, that guy's made it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That person made it, you know. And I really like, you know, I got emotional. And it's funny because, like, you know, you know, I do like a ton of book sales. The dollars don't make me emotional, but that weird, you know, $50
Yeah.
piece of metal really just made me feel good about myself. And
Yeah.
and I didn't know it was going to do that until it came.
Yeah.
And then I was like, holy shit. And then I posted it, and the number of people that were, you know, sort of congratulatory about it really kind of made me feel good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's like, but it didn't change anything. You know,
Yeah.
you know, my income from YouTube last month was like $4.82.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
YouTube's not making you rich,
No.
right? They're not.
No.
My, you know, you know, my butthole jokes are not gonna get monetized, right? So I, like, most of my videos get demonetized, and I just don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not here to make, you know, advertiser income off of my YouTube videos. But the
Yeah.
plaque made me happy.
It's just, yeah, it's just another platform, but you're right. Like that kind of stuff. It's cuz it's like putting a face to a name kind of thing. It's you achieve something, and then it's honestly, when I sit back and I look at the numbers, like you're getting bigger numbers than me. And I can't even imagine that. But like when I look at my numbers just on like TikTok and Instagram analytics, I'm like, holy shit. Like I just came back from Europe. I posted a bunch of those Americans in Europe skits. I looked at my Instagram and TikTok analytics. On TikTok, it was like, in the past 7 days, you've reached 30 million like people. I'm like, what the like
Yeah,
that's insane,
yeah, it's
right?
incredible.
So it's having that kind of reach, and it's a weird, there's a million things you can you can listen to other fucking podcasts about this, like how it does something to your psychology for sure,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And you
Yeah.
were saying all those congratulate, like there's the negative comments, which are easy. Like I barely even look at them unless they're funny, and then sometimes I'll like reply somebody that wants to kill me or something. I'm like, here's my next show. But the positive comments, you also got to be careful with that. I feel like too much positive is also you can't get your
Yeah.
ego too blown up. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Um, I feel like, the positive comments they're so rare for me compared to the negative,
Mm,
that they definitely do help, but you can't sort of use them as your fuel.
yeah,
You have to get the fuel from somewhere else, and it's not from these strangers. It
yeah,
has to be from, other comics you work with, or friends and family, or whatever that looks like. You can't be looking to these strangers for that kind of validation. But it's funny because you mentioned death threats, and you're like the only other comic I know besides myself who gets death threats. And um,
how are you gonna kill me from your mom's basement, buddy? Like it's not that scary.
well, it is and it isn't, because I worry that we do live in a world of crazy people.
That's true.
They
That's true.
do, like I've had several people that are like, I'm going to be at that show on Saturday night. And
Mm,
I'm going, like, they're literally telling me they're going to kill me,
yeah,
and they're coming to a show.
yeah,
And that is concerning. And
yes,
it's like, you can be as much of an asshole as you want,
yeah,
but the minute you start making actual physical violence
yeah,
threats, I almost never report comments, but if somebody threatens my life, I report the comment,
yeah,
and I screenshot it, and I keep their username in the
yeah,
screenshot,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
upload it to Instagram. I
yeah,
upload it to Twitter,
yeah,
uh, and I make sure to shine a huge light on them, because for a number of reasons. One, I want them to know that they're not operating in the shadows.
yeah, yeah,
And even if they're just some anonymous username, you can be tracked. We can
yeah,
find out who you are. And I do that because if, like, on that slim chance that somebody does show up and try to hurt me, or does hurt me,
mm-hmm.
the police at least will have somewhere to look. They'll be like, oh, there's all those death threats on his
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go track these people down.
yeah,
One of them's probably responsible, right? If you're,
yeah,
so, because one of the big things that happens to me, Matt, is my books are often mistaken. Like, I have one book, and I had no idea it was gonna, I have 138 books. One of every time I make one, I don't know what it's gonna do.
yeah,
But I have one called Mom and Dad's Swinger Party,
yeah.
and that book has gotten me almost 100% of my death threats came from that book.
Okay.
And what happened was, and again, it's like, it's all good publicity.
Yeah.
Somebody a third party took that book and read it. She put it up on her TikTok. It went viral, and then someone took that video and added the text to the top that said, "These books are now available in school libraries.
Oh.
They're coming for our children." And then went, spread it on the extreme right.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And what happened was, all these people, and they're still today, like, every day I get called a groomer and a pedophile, and they're coming for your children. This guy is a monster. And so sometimes there's a group of people out there who, I think they consider themselves like internet pedophile hunters or something. And so they're
Yeah.
like, so when it's framed in such a way, like, it's so easy to take what I do out of context and reframe it
Yeah.
to just trigger people.
Yeah.
And then those people start sending me death threats,
Yeah.
because they actually believe that I'm trying to turn 5-year-old boys into swingers.
Yeah.
Like, and so, like,
Internet
the
pedophile.
the amount um of aggression that comes from that is so strong that those people, the only engagement I give them is to shine a massive light on them, because I do think, and again, this, there's no such thing as bad publicity. If someone came to a comedy club and shot a gun at me,
Yeah, no,
if I
that's not
don't
great.
die, I'm going viral.
Yeah.
So,
Let's go.
I'm not like, if I say, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't afraid of it. And, but at the same time, I'm also aware that that's a necessary evil, and every famous person has that, like Dave Chappelle gets death threats. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're not going to. It's like you're not famous till you have haters. Well, you're not really killing it until you have death threats.
Yeah, that's true. That's another level. And it's funny how like all the like it's just jokes. Like we're not I hit some comedians claim to be philosophers and that annoys me deeply because we're not. We're just telling stupid jokes. And yes, they can have some, some usually the funniest ones do have like an element of truth, right?
Right.
That's why they're funny. And they have a
Right.
lot of political commentary, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to form ideas in a way that makes you laugh for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
I'm not, I find it funny when people, and I think people take it personally when they feel like you're trying to change who you voted for.
Yeah.
Like I bought a Tesla and I started making jokes about having a Tesla, and you wouldn't believe how many people were just like, you're a left-wing libtard, and it's like, and then I'd make another joke where I'm like, no, I didn't buy the Tesla to be green. I bought the Tesla to support child cobalt miners,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then they're like, like people just, it's like nowadays the car you chose
Yeah.
is a political statement. It's like, no, I just like a fast car. It's a fast car. That's why
Yeah.
it's faster than the Mercedes I had before.
Yeah.
I don't care that it's the electric part it wasn't even a thing. It was like, yeah, I'll save some money on gas, but I wasn't like, I'm saving the planet. I'm a good person. I don't, there's no virtue signal in buying this car, but people took it. They took it like, oh, I didn't know you were a Biden supporter. And I'm like, well, I'm Canadian. So,
Yeah.
But like they take it as like, oh, wait a second. We don't vote for the same person.
Yeah.
Now I hate you.
Yeah.
And so, when you think that a joke is trying to change your viewpoint, you're mistaking the comic. The comics only want is to get the laugh. So if they see something absurd in something that Trudeau does or Trump does or Biden does or somebody else, Nancy Pelosi, whatever it is that they're making fun of, or something that's perceived to be left or right, like the type of car you choose, like those kinds of things, when people are triggered by that, I find it hilarious, but they take it so personally, like you're trying to change my vote, and nobody's trying to do that.
Yeah, and that's another. I feel like I know I wasn't alive before the internet, for all intensive purposes. But like I feel like
so you're a digital native.
I'm a digital native. Exactly.
You know the difference? The digital native, I'm a digital immigrant. You're a digital native.
Yeah. I was here before you. I was born in this. I was fucking born and bred.
Yeah, you were born in the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Before the Christopher Columbi came.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, so the internet makes everything so easily polarizable because like everybody, like, the algorithms, they put you in your own little echo chamber. And the weird thing is I find that like people used to be more like, with all this, there's a good and bad to everything, right? Everything's shades of gray, nothing's black and white. So like there's so much information available out there. Everybody can be like a micro expert in so many different things.
Right.
There used to be like, people used to be experts in their own field, right? And you'd be the world's renowned expert in like, I don't know,
chemistry.
Chemistry, quantum mechanics, whatever. And
let's pick your major, chemistry.
Yeah. Expert in chemistry, right? Which I weirdly enough am. I'm literally like I have a master's degree in synthetic organic chemistry. So I know a lot about that. And it's like, it's also fucked up how little money you can actually make with that. But anyways,
right.
That's, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. But, so you can be an expert in that. And then you go outside of that realm. And unless you really go out of your way, like it's hard to access information.
Right.
Now, with the kind of ease of access to information, you can have somebody who's very literal, like top of their field, like a Supreme Court judge, right? Obviously a very intelligent person in their own field, but they can also be a fucking flat earther, right?
Sure, yeah. You can
and
be
that brings
stupid in another category.
Yeah, and that brings a whole level of credibility to the flat earthers because they're like, hey, look at this Supreme Court judge that's also a flat earther.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
We got a doctor on our side.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird thing that the internet does to it's so new too, right? Like I feel like we'll find a way to adjust, but like we get used to something and then something like AI comes along and who knows where that's going to go, and it just keeps going, right?
Right.
So, who knows? Maybe honestly, maybe whatever. Maybe we don't need long-term plans. maybe we just need to enjoy these last 5 years, and that's it. That's all we
That's
got.
all we
Who
have.
cares about the haters?
That's all we have.
Yeah. But so a couple more things here. So we were talking about like you obviously have been doing great for yourself. You're an entrepreneur. You figure out a way to make money in whatever you're doing, right? So in my situation, I have like kind of managers kind of trying to stick their hands into, like, they're just sending me emails and stuff. And I've been considering the idea because, like, listen, like, it's, again, like, I'm wearing a lot of hats, right? Like editor, producer, performer, all this stuff. And like, I'm making brand deals and money here and there. Like, you're selling books, you're doing your own thing, but for me it's kind of like it's sporadic. It's nice to have that kind of stability almost. And I like, I have a meeting next week with a potential, like, the management company, and I'm kind of torn. I'm like, what do I do, right? Because it's like I'm making a little bit of money, but if they can offer me kind of more deals or kind of help me out in the right direction, it's like I'll be making this much. Yes, I make $10, I give them one, but making $10 is better than making zero. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
You get a smaller piece of a bigger pie, and it's worth doing.
Yeah. So do you have a manager at all or anything like that? Nope. It's all you.
I'm the
There we go.
manager.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. So
Hear
yeah,
that?
like,
You hear that, Karen? I'm the manager.
yeah.
Come at me.
Yeah, I see the
You
red.
see the red light. Okay, you can
Yeah.
see it.
So if anybody wants to call your manager, you're just like, he's right here. What do you want to say?
Yeah,
What are your
do.
thoughts on that?
I do my own business deals because I was an entrepreneur. I know how to read contracts. I know how to do deals. I know what's right for me and what isn't. And I'm not like, you're getting contacts from managers. That doesn't happen to me. I'm so dirty.
Mhm.
My content is so unclean. Nobody wants to be my manager. Nobody wants to be my agent. So when I say I'm my own manager, it's not like I've taken some stance and I'm like, I have all these managers that I'm pushing back.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody wants to be my manager. And I'm totally okay with that
Yeah.
because I don't play well with others.
That's
you know,
true,
like
yeah.
when I did Identity War with Jay, I play well with comics.
Yeah.
I don't play well with business people. I don't play well with managers. I do brand deals once in a while. But I find that they're very sporadic because most companies, once they look into me, they're like, nah, we don't
Yeah.
want us, like, because people, someone will eventually be like, Coca-Cola is working with this pedophile,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so and obviously, they're not coming to me, but like the idea of having a manager, I think is romanticized. These people don't really bring you that much.
No,
They
yeah.
will promise you the world, and they'll make you sign a contract that means they get 10% of every $100 gig you do, every cheap, every time someone slips you, a $50 bill at a small show in a fucking basement in Toronto, they're going to be there with their hand out looking for their $5. And
Yeah.
they don't always, like, they'll get everything and sometimes do nothing for it.
Yeah.
So, they'll see that you're making a rise, and they may say, hey, we can get you more things, we can bring this in, and they may bring one or two deals to the table. And I'm not saying that they're all bad,
Yeah.
but there are definitely, some predatory managers out there that are trying to sign comics and just take a piece of everything that you do, and they may or may not bring you any riches.
Yeah.
So, and having a manager doesn't bring the deals. Being good at what you do brings the deals.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I would be careful with that. I work with a couple of companies that bring brand deals to creators. They take a cut.
Yeah.
But they only take a cut of what they bring you. They don't.
Yeah,
they're not
exactly,
getting.
yeah.
They're not these 360 deals where they're getting 100% of, or they're getting like 10% of 100% of what you're doing. There
Yeah.
are managers out there that will take that and they will sign you, and then they will just come collecting money every time you do something. And so it's, for me, I wish I could say I had a lot of them coming at me because I might take a deal, but at the same time, I'm so vertically integrated.
Yeah.
Like, I self-publish my books. I don't have a publishing company. Everything I do, I get 100% of, and I kind of like it that way because I don't answer to anyone.
Yeah, that's good. And I've been asking, like, anybody who will kind of lend an ear, essentially, like yourself. I just opened for Christina Puzhitsky, and she gave me some good advice about that. Ian Fidance, he was in
What did
Toronto
she say?
recently. She said, well, she has a manager,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But she's like, just do your own thing. Her and Tom, when they had their podcast initially, like they own, so for YMH they own everything, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a huge podcast
Yeah.
and there's no manager sticking their hand
And
in
they have
that
a whole
honey
bunch
pot.
of podcasts
Oh yeah, they have
at
a
their
whole
studio,
network
yeah.
now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was insane. That was insane. Just the whole and actually that night. So she's like, before I went on stage, she's like, no pressure, but Russell Peters' manager is here. So she brought up the manager, and he came backstage and had like drinks with us after, and I picked his ear about that. His manager also happens to be his brother, so that's a different
Right.
kind of relationship.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Family kind of thing.
I love Christina. I love Tom. I love all the stuff that they do. And you know, it's funny. They, I like one day I follow them on Instagram. I follow all their stuff. Love YMH. Have me on. I'll fly to Austin tomorrow. But I was watching a video once on Instagram. It came up on Reels, and it was some backstage, behind the scenes stuff that they were doing. And they're walking around with this camera, and there's a guy. One of their producers his name is Chad.
Okay.
And they were showing he got a new desk. Okay. And they're showing his desk, and they're panning by his desk. And what do I see on his desk? One of my books.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I lost my mind. And I was
Yeah.
like, and then I was like, hey, you got one of my books. Bring me on. And like nobody responded to me, you know, and I was just like, you got my book on your desk.
Yeah.
Like,
that's hilarious. Yeah, no, I just messaged Christina like yesterday because I opened for her a few weeks ago, and she sold out a theater in Toronto. And that was the easiest 10 minutes of my life. That's like when you write up a joke in your head, you imagine like, I'm going to say that, they're going to laugh. And then you go to a basement and they don't laugh and you want to kill yourself. But in front of a sold out theater,
audience. Yeah.
that was the easiest gig. And just yesterday, I did a gig at a place in Toronto called the Ice Queen. All right. I don't know if you've ever been there. No. Have you heard of it?
Never heard of it.
It is a literal gang bar. Like it's a crip. Wow. I think it's a crip bar. I don't know if I'm allowed to say any of this, but like I looked up like the gang locations in Toronto. It made sense. All right. Like there was like shit on the floor and people doing crack. And
you pulled it up on gangmaps.com?
Gangmaps.com. Literally. That's probably what it's called. Like you can tell like where the Crips, the Bloods, and everybody is. So
wow. I didn't even know we had Crips and Bloods in Toronto. I thought it was like
we do.
The Jets or something like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm probably gonna get some death threats now for sure. Yeah. But it's okay. Based on the people that were at that bar, they don't really follow through with anything, so it's okay. But anyways, point is, I just did a sold out show in a theater, and now I'm performing in front of 5 crackheads at a gang bar.
Yep, that's comedy.
I sent that to Christina, and I'm like, first of all, I loved every second of it. It was hilarious. I have a joke about like Apple, like how Apple features annoy me. And I just looked at them. I'm like, can any of you like afford an iPhone, or like any of you have Apple products? And they're just like old lady who was like almost OD'd, like, I have an iPhone. I was like, all right, I'll do the joke. It was fucking hilarious. And then Matt Render, the guy who hosts the mic, came up after me, and he started doing this podcast, or basically a podcast where he would just ask them for advice about his like dating life. And I was just, as a comic, you go to open mics, you don't usually enjoy it. Like you said, you're just there writing your own joke. I was having the best. That was the most fun I've had at a comedy show, at this fucking gang bar with like crackheads giving this guy dating advice. I was living my life. I sent Christina a message right away. I'm like, I just went from that to like doing this, and I couldn't be more happy. Like that's how I know I'm doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So that was really fun. I don't know if you've had any like gigs like that, but those are.
Yeah, I've done some sold out shows in some big venues. I'm
talking about like the crackhead gigs.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like I've done some big venues where you're like, oh my God, there's a paying audience. They're loving it. They're here to have a good time. And then I've done, I just did a show 2 Saturdays ago it was like a weed show, and they're the worst. Weed shows? You ever done a weed show?
Yeah. No,
they're the worst. And it was like, they had 300 people when I got there.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's
and I'm
audience.
Like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then they did a prize giveaway, and as soon as they did the prize giveaway, all the potheads left because they were like, well, all the pot got given out. We're leaving. And so it was. Should
do that after the show.
Yeah, the last 2 headliners were me and Keith Pedro.
Okay.
And so
That's the Filipino guy?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I know
So
him.
I
Yeah.
went out and I just met him for the first time that night. He's hilarious. And so I went out before him and I did 15 minutes and I was like I walked out onto the stage and there were like 14 people left in the room.
Yeah.
And they were scattered throughout a 300 person, and I was like, "Oh my god, this
That's
is
hilarious.
horrible." And I couldn't hear a single laugh. I could see people laughing, but I couldn't even hear them.
Yeah.
And so it was so like it was like deaf. It was like I felt like I bombed the whole time
Yeah.
and I remember I was like I got to like 11, 12 minutes of my 15 and I'm like I'm fucking done. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I can't, and so I've done both sides of the spectrum where you're like in a basement for 5 people like you said, or in a 300 person theater, 400 person theater where you're just like killing it and the audience is like drinking, having a good time, there to laugh. A lot of the shows in Toronto are like, you know, I'm sure you've done, I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure you've done like, there's one that's like you got to go up a fire escape.
Yes, I've done that.
Yeah. Like
This is the best comedy club in Toronto. I hear Kevin Hart does spots there sometimes.
right. And I'm, and like, you go up the fire escape and it's like boiling hot inside and there's like 8 people in the room and you have this like this kind of experience where you're like these people like I'm not saying this particular venue but a lot of these smaller venues they have like given away these tickets, right? And so these people are there, they haven't even gone out of pocket to be there.
Yeah.
And there's something about you
actually
came
that
to
particular venue charges $30 on Saturdays. So
well, yeah. So I'm saying like that, but a lot of them are like they're advertising like this is a great place to bring your first date,
yeah,
right? And like so if you go to a comedy venue where they're advertising this as a good date night,
yeah,
what happens is you get all these people on their first dates,
yeah,
and they haven't figured out what their senses of humor are with each other yet, and so
Yeah.
they're kind of looking at each other every time you tell
Should
a
I
joke,
laugh?
like
Yeah.
should I laugh in front of this person?
yeah.
And so it's like really hard.
yeah,
And then there's these other places where you go, like if you go to Yuck Yucks or you go to some of these nicer venues where people have paid to get in, they know exactly what they're in for.
Yeah.
They got a babysitter, all this kind of stuff. They're there to laugh.
Mhm.
They're much more receptive.
Yes.
And they're kind of like prepped.
Yeah.
Whereas other places you go and you can kind of see they're like, let's see what you got, and you're just like, fuck, it's going to be so much harder to get over that hump.
Also, what I like about places like Yuck Yucks is that they're branded as like a dark comedy place. So it just I don't, for some reason it just feels like you feel more freed up there. It's like home turf. When I go
Right.
to these more like kind of there are some rooms, especially in Toronto, and I'm sure there's the same in like LA and New York, where you don't feel completely comfortable saying everything, and that's not what comedy is. Like, you should be able to make mistakes, okay? You should be able to go up there. How do you know Shane? I just watched Shane Gillis' new special. Hilarious. And
hilarious.
His Live in Austin, Texas special, so good. And I watched it with my buddy who's doesn't know much about comedy, but he just spent an hour laughing at what was mostly like autism jokes, which he does so
and
well.
Down syndrome jokes.
The Down syndrome jokes, yeah. Because he looks like he almost has, he does that impression well. And like, he's like, I did not like he's more of like he's a left leaning guy, and he's like, he thinks he's politically correct, and he's like, I did not expect to laugh at that stuff. I'm like,
right,
yeah, he didn't just get up there and make it funny. You know how many like times he's performed at smaller clubs and made people walk and get mad at him to find the combination of words that expresses his idea in a way that will make people laugh.
Yeah,
right. He found a way to do that by going to places where they allow him to try it out. And if you don't have that,
it's hard. Like that does happen. I just came back from LA, and that was that audience is very hard. Like, they're very woke.
Yeah.
And I have a couple jokes about land acknowledgements.
Okay.
And all I got were groans from the audience.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that what happens is white people love to get offended on behalf of whoever you're making jokes about, right?
Yeah.
So if I make a joke about George Floyd, I piss off white people. If I make a joke about land acknowledgements, I piss off white people. But like, so I posted this clip of me doing this land acknowledgement joke in LA, Burbank, and I got all these angry white people, And then indigenous people were stitching the thing and saying all the white people calling this guy tone deaf are the ones who are tone deaf because we thought that was hilarious. Indigenous people hate land acknowledgements. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that.
I mean, logically, it's like, oh, sorry for killing your ancestors and taking your land. Are you gonna give it back now? No, just sorry. Here's
Just
a
want to
cookie.
mention it. Just
Yeah.
wanted to acknowledge that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they, what happens is, so this one indigenous woman stitched my video and she said, not only do we hate land acknowledgements, but when people find out that there's going to be someone indigenous at the event, they'll call us and they'll ask us, can you come and dress in regalia and read the land acknowledgement for us? So like imagine that phone call, right? Where like this
Yeah.
white lady manager of this event hall calls up this indigenous person and says, hey, we heard you're coming to our show. Could you maybe dress up like your ancestors and read the words that the white people wrote for you?
Yeah.
And they're too polite to say no because
Yeah.
in their culturally they don't want to be assholes to us.
Yeah.
And so they rather than saying, fuck you, whitey.
Good catch.
Good catch. I got a fruit fly. They do it.
Yeah.
And they do it and they're cringing the whole time. And I'm not speaking for all indigenous people. Some of them do, I think, like land acknowledgements, or else why did we come up with this?
Yeah.
But it's a white person thing to serve white guilt. And so, but then when you go to a comedy club in a woke town like LA, or and you tell that joke, all you get is groans because they don't know how to react and they're too afraid to just laugh. But they're groaning because they need to get out. They have an emotion. They need to get it out. That's their way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But like, it's funny how so many times you go to tell these jokes and people are reacting because they're reacting the way they think they have to react rather than the way they just want to.
Yeah.
And like for me, I will laugh. I don't care if the joke is racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynist, whatever. If it's funny, it's funny.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's racist or using stereotypes or any of those things, because if all of those things have the potential to be funny, and as long as you're not up there saying, well, we need to put them all on an island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're not up there being hateful.
That could be a part of a funny joke there, though, because like at the end of the day, why are we making jokes? Why do we as human beings love jokes? They're like basic emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like love, anger, laughter, right? These things that we're addressing are serious topics, obviously. Where nobody like, if you have somebody that is a victim of racism, where nobody's gonna come up to them and be like, shove it in their face, right? We're trying to, just through what we do, we're trying to lighten in the mood a little bit, right?
We're trying to surprise you with a misdirection or a joke, and we're not trying to, again, it goes back to my thing. I'm not trying to change who you vote for.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to change policies. I'm just looking at the absurd and pointing it out to you. And the first time I heard a land acknowledgement, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. It was at my kid's high school, and I was just like, they're doing this?
Yeah.
Like, you're recognizing that this is the traditional territory of the blah, blah, blah. But yeah, we want to just acknowledge this is occupied land. Like, imagine if Russia beat Ukraine, right? Like, talk about something people don't want you to talk about.
Yeah.
Imagine if Putin won.
Yeah.
Right? And they just paved over the Ukraine and then asked Ukrainians to come up and acknowledge, like, hey, we're having a big party at the bar here. Hey, Vlad, come up and tell them how you used to own this land. Tell them it's funny. Come tell them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so like patronizing.
Yeah.
When you think about it, but for some reason, white people think it like absolves us of our sins.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that's why people like Christianity. It's a cool religion. I can just do whatever I want, and if I say sorry on Sunday, I can just keep doing it.
Yeah, forgiveness is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, but it is a weird thing, and I have a hard time criticizing it. I don't think about it much because like it's like they're trying to propose a solution, but it's obviously not a solution, and it's like it's such a messy, dirty history, and like what there's not much you can do. That's the sad thing, is like sometimes you just have to accept it, like, damn, we really fucked up, like, oops.
Yep.
And they're trying to say, oh, really sorry, do you forgive us? Can we be friends now? Yeah, sorry, eh? Like, and so that's what I'm saying. As comedians, the world is a fucked up place, and we're trying to make it a little brighter by just making fun of it, right? Because a
Right.
lot of it is funny, and
Yeah.
that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to make statements or do whatever. Some of us are, not me. Like I don't. So it's a weird thing that we're trying to do. It would be nice if we were free to do it without getting death threats or being attacked on stage like Dave Chappelle or yourself. Not that your death threats I'm talking about. So it's a weird thing that we're trying to navigate, and let's see what we can do our best, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so to end this podcast, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement, and yeah, no, that's it. Thanks for coming on, Brad. That was a really fun talk.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for lending the studio, this amazing studio, very inspirational. I'm definitely gonna take some inspo for this in my future house or wherever, my fucking basement, turn it into a sick ass studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a man that collects dolls.
All right. Plug anything you want. Whatever. Your books, right?
Just search, just Google me. You'll find it all.
If you want to get triggered, Brad Gosse on any social media channel, feel free to send him some hate messages. He'll have fun with those. All right, guys. See you next time. Peace.